some of you know, I spent half of last year away from Australia racing in the British Endurance Championship for superbikes, which was a suitable culmination to my years of racing, and we had quite a successful campaign. It was a very enjoyable campaign, but one of the things that I've been talking, and people do talk of course, year after year, I had this idea a few years ago, I'd love to write a book about racing. I talked and thought and talked and thought and did not much else until finding myself in Britain, training in the gym in the morning for a couple of hours, and then in the afternoon, except for the 4 intense periods of the races, I had time on my hands. So I pinched, borrowed, begged a computer and started to write. It was a wonderful experience. And I'm going to ask Wendy now to just pick up the fruits of my labours and show. So we finally, as of a week ago, draft ready for pre-production, ready for self-publication, and probably going from self-publication to then promoting and publishing the book. But even if I never sell a single copy, it doesn't matter, because I had that period of capturing 31 years of wonderful memories and reflecting. And one of the things I reflected on in the process of writing the book, which was intended to portray, the book's entitled The View from the Back of the Pack, which is a slightly tongue-in-cheek look at somebody who wasn't all that good at racing, but in the company of people who were exceptionally good at it. I had a teammate who went on to be a world champion, and I had several colleagues who came up, and I saw them when they were very young, starting out applying their trade and going very fast. And some of them went on to become world champions. My former teammate was Wayne Gardner. One of the guys I had the pleasure of spending many hours on the track with was Mick Doon, who went on to win 5 world championships, and so on. So I know quite a number of people who are extremely good at my particular sport, and in the process I've met other people. Being in international sport, I've met other people. Notably, I was sponsored by the same sponsor as Steve and Mark Moore, who of course played cricket for Australia. And through them, through the boys, before they were put into test cricket when they were young guys, I got to meet other people. So cricket and motor racing in particular, but other spheres of endeavour. And one of the things I reflected on, and people often ask me this, is why do winners win? It sounds, of course, the win wins, but WWW, why winners win? So I reflected on it, and I reflected on it indeed in the book, why winners win. And there are 3 characteristics that are common to all people who consistently win. And this is not just true of sport, but it's true of business, it's true of life in general. 3 characteristics. And if you have all 3 of those characteristics, you are going to be a winner, most likely. If you're not in possession of those 3 characteristics, or you don't develop them, the odds of winning are much, much harder. The first characteristic that's common, and it was evident right from the time that these guys were really young, was desire. The desire to win, in some instances, burned like a flame. Wayne had that when he was a young guy, 17, when he was first in our team and when came through. He had this burning desire to win that you couldn't extinguish with one of those huge hoses they used to put out bushfires, or get that big helicopter with the 10 tons of water and dump it. It still wouldn't have extinguished that fire. The flame of desire was so huge. He would crash, he would get up and do it again. He would crash in the rain, in the dry, he would get up and do it again, and always with the same intensity of desire. And then many, many years later, when I sponsored a young guy who went on to win an Australian championship in 2001, and last year in 2008 came 3rd in the World Championship, when I had the pleasure of working with young Josh, this time on the other side of the fence as a team owner, providing bikes to this 16-year-old, the same thing. The reason that I ended up sponsoring Josh was that very thing. When I looked at all the kids who had the speed and were quick, there was this one thing that set Joshua aside from the others, was this intensity of desire. When I asked him, what do you want to do with this sport? And he looked at me in the eyes, this is a 16-year-old, remember, he stared at me with these blue eyes, these intense blue eyes, and said, I want to be world champion. And he meant it. So he had that intensity of desire. But sometimes you can have the desire, and if you don't have the next piece, that desire can burn out. The second thing that you have to have is the drive. And the difference between desire and drive, desire is a little bit like what Melody was talking about, this wanting, this wish. But the drive is the energy and focus to shut all of the other things progressively out of your mind while you concentrate. And as I said a minute ago, when Wayne was young, he used to crash. And sometimes when you crash, and I should know, because I have, that can stifle some of the desire. The desire to go quite so fast the next time may be a little diminished. But if you've got that drive, notice, and particularly that's obvious with young people, they'll crash or have a mishap, they'll get back on and push on. So the drive to focus, to shut everything else out of the mind. In other words, it's like taking the flame of desire and galvanizing it, like you galvanize steel, where you harden it and you use the flame and you make it from the raw lumpy metal into something steely, like a sword. But the third thing, and I think the third vital ingredient, is determination. The determination never ever to give up, the determination to continue to push forward, in a sense like what we do here. You look at yourself and you give a speech, or you go out on the track and you do a protest session or a practice, and you come back in and you sit down and you analyse all of that. You analyse what you did, you analyse what others see you did, you receive evaluation, which can be in the form of lap charts to tell you how fast you went, or you nowadays with all the sophisticated electronics, you download all that data from the machine and you look at it on the computer and you can tell what the suspension and engine and everything else was doing, and you look at ways you can improve. So the same formula is here, the determination to not just keep pushing forward, but to learn from all the inputs that are coming in and improve the model until you reach the goal. So ladies and gentlemen, as a part of that reflection, why winners win is because they have the desire to start with. They have the drive to push on where the others might stop, and they have the determination and the focus to build in all the models for improved performance and ultimate success.